thought it was I really thought it was the cheese. I thought there was something in that was messing with me, and no, it was definitely the carbs in the crust. Which makes me think, they've got like cauliflower crust or.
That's very good. I've had that.
Yeah.
Actually.
So people have said, well, you don't even need a crust. I'm thinking, well, you got to have something to hold the pizza together. But I like the way the crust tastes, but it definitely is something that my body, if I'm going to eat it, I need to eat it either for breakfast or I need to eat it for lunch. I can't have it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I think it makes sense because your body starts slowing down. So your metabolism and everything starts slowing down later on in the day. So if you have a heavy meal like that, and I wouldn't have considered pizza a heavy meal prior to watching what goes on with my blood sugar when I eat it, but it definitely is. But I tried to, and for whatever reason, my phone was not letting me send me emails so I could do the pictures. So last week when we were here, I showed you what my blood sugar did after Culver's. So yesterday I had the exact, almost very similar meal. I didn't have the bun, but then after I got done eating the meal, I went out and I picked up sticks for an hour and a half. And so the part where we talked about last week that after you eat, if you just go for a walk for 10, 15 minutes, it never did spike up that way. So last week it was like 180 it spiked out at, and took forever to come back down. It didn't come back down until after the 7 o'clock class that I taught. I mean, it was high for the rest of the day. Yesterday, being outside picking up sticks, it never, and it went down faster. So, and I wasn't running on the treadmill. I was bending, walking out in the field, picking up sticks for an hour, and I was moving, but I wasn't getting my heart rate up, but I was, getting some kind of exercise there. So, so today we're going to talk about why. We're going to go on the next stuff here. We're going to talk about this disclaimer that I'm not a doctor, and this is things that I've come to believe about what the body can do for itself. But again, you meet with your doctor, with your healthcare team about what's going on with you, and what I'm helping with some suggestions. So a couple people have, if you listen to the news over the last 2 days, there was a big report that came out that said 91% of the people who do intermittent fasting have greater risk of cardiovascular disease. And I'm like, so I got on and went to the people that I go to for research. So thinking about intermittent fasting is saying, this has been around for 2,000 to 3,000 years. It's not something new on the scene. It's not something that all of a sudden somebody came up with the idea that intermittent fasting was a good thing. I think that, in my opinion, and from the researchers that listened to the report and looking at it, it goes back to what I said at the beginning. When I started on this journey for myself, I only listened to people who did scientific reviews. So the reports that they looked at, or the people that did the experiments on, they needed to be peer reviewed, and there's this whole publishing stuff that has to happen. People look at your data to say, is it right? Is it wrong? And then, to rip apart your thing. So the study that was brought out 2 days ago that said intermittent fasting is bad for you was somebody who published a paper in China. It wasn't peer reviewed. Nobody looked at it, but all the news agencies picked it up. So I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not. So let's just put that out there. But I can see where you could be that person, because to me, intermittent fasting has been around for 2,000 to 3,000. It's been a long, long time. But if people start doing this is something that you're going to get healthier. You're going to eat healthier foods. You're not going to need your drugs, and you're not going to eat the foods that the food people are selling you that are bad for you. So they're not going to make any money on that. And so the other part of that, if you look at all the the studies and stuff that go out, that they cost money because people are either in case where they're doing blood tests and stuff on. A lot of those tests and those studies are paid for by the pharmaceutical companies, and they're paid for by the food companies. So there's not anybody standing in line to pay for the intermittent fasting thing, because neither one of those companies are going to win if people start doing it. I think you have to take it with a grain of salt. To me, it's kind of like the whole thing: are eggs good for you? Are eggs bad for you? Is coffee good for you? Is coffee bad for you? But the whole thing, when you come out with that big of a number, that it concerns me to say 91. If I hadn't done all this reading over the last year, I would have said, wow, I wouldn't advise anybody to do it with that high of a number. But they said the study was done in such, so it didn't ask the people how long they had done intermittent fasting. It didn't ask them what kind of a jobs they had. So were they people that worked the night shift? And they were doing, I mean, they didn't ask, and they didn't field it out, and there were lots of things that the scientists that I I read their information, said there was a lot of things flawed with it, but because it's only 3 days old. But to me, that's even regardless. It's major news. People picked this up, but it was put out by the American Heart Association. So they're the ones who put this out for the public. But all the studies and everything were done in China. Not that that's bad or it isn't, but the fact that it wasn't reviewed or it wasn't looked at before it went out, that's what concerns me. So I stand by my saying that this is actually a good thing. They've proven that it's good for people with diabetes. They've proven that it's good for people who have heart disease. And I think the sad thing is if and when this study becomes validated and say, oh, it wasn't right, there's probably not going to be a follow-up study to say, oh, we got the story wrong. It's just you just have to, figure that out. So, yeah, so that's my thought on that study. So if you heard that, again, listen to your body. If your body says intermittent fasting isn't for you, but everybody's body is different. So I would go with that. So I've talked to a few people over the past 3 weeks. If we can just spend a little bit of time, I've had people tell me that they're losing weight by doing some of the stuff. Some of the people have said it's because of the sleeping. Some people said they've been trying to lose 10 pounds forever, and just through the intermittent fasting, so not eating at night, maybe extending the time before they have breakfast in the morning, that they're finally starting to lose weight. So anybody have any stories that you'd like to share, that anything that's clicked on that's made any sense for you that has helped?
I'm not a big scale guy. Just like my pants start fitting looser, that's what I go by.
Good. And are they looser?
They're a little bit looser.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
Not where I want to be,
Yeah, they're looser. Looser is good. Yep. Yeah. So anybody else?
I've been doing it,
And
we both have. But
so the intermittent fasting,
Mhm.
and what period of time do you do?
we go the 16-8.
Okay.
So if we're done eating at 6:30 or 7:30, then we're eating at by 11:30.
Yep.
But I don't find it hard, and I find that I don't eat as much. That's what I'm seeing when I eat,
Okay.
and I'm not hungry after a certain point at night either.
I'm not hungry in the morning till noon.
Yeah.
Noon isn't hard to go to at all.
Okay. Good.
For me.
Good. Yep.
But I've also been doing the Weight Watchers app, so I'm trying to make
Yep.
most of the time healthier choices. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Good. Yes.
Well, a year ago, I did a long-term sub job for a teacher who had died of a heart attack.
Okay.
Called and asked if I'd do it. It was extremely stressful.
Okay.
I lost 32 pounds, and while I was there for 18 weeks, I gained a pound a week.
Wow.
I know.
But that's with the stress and cortisol.
Oh my God. I'm
It's
so
a real
stressed.
thing. It's a real thing.
Yeah, and so, like I did cook, well, I don't like to cook anyway, but anyway, I'd be like, stop at McDonald's, I'm vegetarian for almost 30 years, so get the egg and cheese thing, and iced coffee, and all that stuff with lots of calories and processed.
Yep.
And just eat chips, everything, so stressed,
Yep.
and sleeping a lot, and things like that. So then
Yep.
And you get used to eating them, you're addicted to them, that was not good. But after a couple, 2, 3 weeks, I started on my February 1st thing, and I do noon.
Okay.
Because that makes me accountable.
Yep.
And I know exactly, if I eat this now, I'm gonna be over my calorie amount.
Yep, yep.
And I have not been able to exercise very much at all. I've had a back issue. So
And
that's another
yeah.
problem.
Well,
But
and
it's working.
yeah, but with what we had last week, when you're wanting to lose fat, exercise really isn't a big.
Yeah.
But the big part of what exercise is for fat loss is you need to increase your muscles. So
Yeah.
doing strength training and stuff. And again, when I'm not saying cardiovascular exercise is bad or something that you shouldn't do. You know, everything is depending on where you are. So, but if your main goal is to lose fat, you're better off to get on the weights than to run on the treadmill or to do
And
to the.
I think you probably do need both. You know,
Oh,
for your
absolutely,
heart
absolutely,
and-
absolutely, absolutely. I'm not saying that at all. But it's important. I think as when I went through college, the strength training wasn't that thing for women, and now we see just as many women. But I think as you know, with osteoporosis and different things, you need to have that muscle base. And now, looking at fat loss, having that muscle base is good for having to process the sugar when it comes into your body. So it does make a difference. So why do we eat? This to me was kind of striking. So food is something that provides nutrients. Nutrients are substances that provide energy for activity, growth, and all functions of the body, such as breathing, digesting food, keeping you warm, materials for the growth and repair of your body, and for keeping the immune system healthy. So with that definition, are potato chips food? So is there, do potato chips provide nutrients? They provide you carbs, and they've said carbs aren't like you need your fats, you need your proteins. Carbs, we get so many in the excess. So when you're eating that potato chips, it says it's fortified with all that stuff, but it's so far removed from what the original potato was that there's probably nothing left there. And the same thing if you would say like Skittles. Is there anything in a Skittle that's good for it? So I think the challenge when we look at what the American diet has turned into, we're not really eating food. I don't know, we're eating processed stuff that's going into our body that really isn't helping with any of providing us energy for activity. In fact, if those foods are all full of sugar, it's doing the reverse for you. It's taking your blood sugar high, and then you're crashing, and you're having to go take a nap, or you're going to have to throw in more Skittles to bring it back up so that you can, to keep going. So I would challenge you to look at the foods that you're eating and say, is this actually food, or is this just some manufactured thing that some big company is making lots of money off of you that in the long term is just going to make you sick? So it's not helping get you healthy, it's just making you sick. So to me, that was interesting to say, okay, some of those things taste really good, and what they do with those things is I love red Skittles. And they're probably one of the ones that's the worst for you because of the red coloring, but I like the way they taste. So if you had hooked my brain up to the electrodes, the dopamine receptors in your brain, mine are firing on full blast, and they know that. So that's why when you look at the foods that you eat, there's foods. We're going to get to this in a little bit later. Have a lot of sugar in them, and the reason they have that sugar in it is that when you're eating it, you're like, oh, this is really good. Dopamine is going blah 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 blah, and which is also the reason that it's hard to get off of it. So if you stop having your thing where you're lighting up your brain, it's kind of like the people who are drug addicts. It takes a while for their brain to get back to normal so that you're not having and expecting the high peaks. Addiction to sugar is kind of the same way, where you highs, lows. If you're having a bad day, last week after I left here one day, I went to Culver's and I got the biggest concrete that I could get. And I'm like, I know that there's nothing in here that's good, but I was that's my thing. I've stopped drinking alcohol again, but sugar is my thing. When I'm stressed, that's my thing to do. So then, are you addicted to sugar? The clear signs of sugar addiction involve consumptions of large amounts of food or drinks laden with sugar. And a lot of times they're together. So for me, if I'm going to have like a Diet Coke, if I'm going to have whatever, I want some potato chips with it. So not only are you getting the sugar from the drink, you're getting the sugar from the junk, and neither one of those things have provided any kind of nutrients for my body. It's just junk going in. The individual may eat constantly, eat to combat boredom. There's a lot of that going on, and become hyper and crash, and then you just start and you do it again. And that is what most people do all day long. So eating 5-6 times a day where the sugar starts crashing and you start feeling like, oh gosh, you know, my blood sugar is really low right now. It's not that your blood sugar is really low. You're just coming off the high from the sugar, and your body says, send me some more, send me some more. So how long does it take to detox from sugar? So done correctly, takes 2 to 3 days to get it out of your system. You know it's happening because your cravings will start to diminish, your energy will increase, and you'll crave healthy foods more than unhealthy ones. If it takes longer than 3 days, it's time to check to see if you've got hidden carbs and sugars in your food. So looking at labels that you have to see how many grams of sugar are there. So there's a difference between detoxing from sugar and how long does it take for you not to be addicted to sugar. So for me, I don't know that I'm ever going to get unaddicted, because my dad was an alcoholic, and my dad would always say he can't drink alcohol. And I think the problem with food addictions are I can't not eat. You have to eat. So then it's like, okay, so now you have to choose what you're going to eat. And somebody will have a birthday, well, you can have just a little piece of this cake, or you can have just a little bit of this ice cream. I can't, because that just sends me down that spiral to where I keep going. So if you go 1 to 2 months without having a lot of sugar, then you can say you're kind of getting over that hump. But for me, when my sons were little, I would say to my boys, I'm going to stop drinking diet soda, and they would cry, and they're like, Mom, don't do it, you're so crabby. When that happens, just don't do it. And I realized it had nothing to do, and I always thought for years and years and years that going off of the diet soda was about the caffeine. It's got nothing to do with the caffeine. It's the sugar that was bottom out, and I'd be cranky, and they wouldn't like it, and it wasn't a pleasant thing to do. But if you can detox from the sugar 2-3 days and get that stuff out of your system, and then start making those healthier choices, 2 to 3 months, then I'm going to say that you've got it kicked. For me, I don't know that I'll ever have it kicked. I would like to think I cannot be addicted to sugar, but it is that thing that if I'm being stressed, I want some ice cream. And if I go back, that's what my mom did. I can remember Mom, if we would be going somewhere and we'd stop someplace and get some ice cream. Well, don't tell Dad. Or, that kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, I try not to do that with my grandkids now, and I love my mother to death, but that is probably how she grew up, was with her family, where sweets were the thing, and that's how people got rewarded. So I think as an adult, there's making that conscious choice to say, this ice cream isn't going to make me any healthier, and 10 minutes after eating this, I'm going to feel awful. So let's just skip to not go through, eat all this, and get to having a different choice. So whether it's going for a walk, doing some meditation, doing something along that line. I realized coming back to work and being in this environment, though, working and like Jane said, it's harder than just being home and not having my life was pretty planned for the last 3 years. I could say when I'm going to eat, when I'm going to do this, and then having all this stuff like, oh, wow, this is definitely different, definitely different. So how much sugar should you have in a day? again, sugar is not, so this is what, I think this was wasn't the American Heart Association. It's one of those national organizations, 7 teaspoons for men, 6 teaspoons or 5 teaspoons for women. So if you think of sitting down and eating 5 teaspoons of sugar, that would just gross you out, right? I mean, that grosses me out. But then you look at the amount of sugar that's in different. So if you have 1 Coke for the day, man or woman, you really can't have anything with any sugar in it the rest of the day because you've got your limit. But the other thing to go back to, though, is they put these limits up here because people want to know what's the recommended. Sugar isn't anything that your body needs to have in this stuff. It's toxic. So when sugar comes into your body says, oh, sugar, and that's why it goes immediately into either your muscles to use for energy, or it's going to go directly to your fat storage. So granulated sugar per se, there isn't a need for your body to have it. They make the recommendations because people want to know how much they should have. You really, not necessary. Yes?
So I looked up the amount of sugar that you are, recommended sugar, and there was a whole paragraph about added sugar or sugar that just is naturally in the thing.
Yep.
So, and it wasn't clear to me if the 25 grams, say, which category is it in?
I don't think it matters per se, but if you say, what's the difference between let's just go here with juice. There's 30 grams of sugar in juice. Let's say it's an orange juice. So if you actually ate the orange, you're getting the fiber and everything with that. So it's still the 25 grams.
Okay.
So it's still, so, the people were saying with how much fruit should you eat a day, and they were more of your diet or more of the food that you should be the vegetables that aren't loaded so much with natural sugars. So much better to have natural sugars than to have, like salad dressing or ice cream or processed type of stuff. Much healthier for your body to take in the fiber versus just having the straight sugar and trying to stay with the natural. But even, if you're looking at fruits, having the kiwis or the grapes, a lot of sugar in those. They're much better choice than grabbing the Skittles, but there's still a lot of sugar in there. So depending on where you are and how much sugar that you're taking in, it may be something that you need to cut back. So if you're doing the intermittent fasting and you're watching your grams of sugar and you're not losing any kind of weight, you may need to pull up your Fitbit or whatnot and start recording. And so my Fitbit app has a thing, and it tells me how many grams of sugar I'm getting in a day. It'll tell me how much fat, how much protein, and you can get your micronutrients there too, and the macronutrients to see to what it is. And I would encourage you to do something like that for a week just to see where you're at. Are the majority of your calories coming in, are they carbohydrates? And if they are, trying to get more of that in getting the protein, getting more of the fats, but then looking at your diet. So if you this week go home and say you're going to keep track of everything you eat, and then at the end of the week you say, how many different things did I eat? Do you eat the same thing over and over, and trying to expand it? So instead of having grapes, maybe you have some blueberries, or maybe you add 2 or 3 different things that you normally don't have on your salad, put them in your salad so that you're expanding the base of nutrients that you're getting from the food versus having the same thing all the time, and hoping that what you're eating isn't necessarily coming out of a box. If it's coming out of the freezer, that's something that's frozen, good. If it's fresh, good. But if it's coming out of the box and it has, you're looking at the preservatives and stuff that's in food, probably not necessarily really great for the body. Ways to reduce sugar. Eliminating sodas, juice, liquid calories are, let's say they're, and beer could be one of those things. Liquid calories are tough because there's no fiber, there's no, it just into your system and away you go. So eliminating the juices and that type of stuff, liquid sugars are good. Look at food labels. So the book that some of you purchased last week is the name of the book is called Bright Line Eating. And the lady is a scientist, and her name is Susan Thompson. She was addicted to cocaine. She was addicted to meth. She was alcoholic. She was all these things. And she said the hardest thing that she had to get unaddicted to was sugar. She said it was harder than the other drugs that she was with. And this is one of the things that came out of her book is look at a food label. And if the food label, if you're looking at the ingredients on it, if any of the first 3 ingredients are sugar, just put it back because there's too much sugar. If it's the first ingredient, and if you look at most kids' breakfast cereals, sugar is like number 1 or number 2. But that would be a really good way to look at something to know whether you should be eating or not. If one, 2, or 3, and if it's like dextrose or like the OSE at the end of it, different names for sugar. And somebody says, well, is there a healthy sugar? Again, sugar is something that your body doesn't need. So whatever variety of sugar, so if it's brown sugar, is it better for you? No, it's just brown. All of it, it's sugar that your body doesn't need. So is there a good one? I guess the best one would be the fruits if you're eating where you're getting the natural sweetness, that you get the fiber along with it. But again, sugar, not something that your body, it's not one of those nutrients that your body has to have. If you eat fruit, eat it at the end of the meal. We talked about this last week, but don't eat it at the evening meal. Again, this is going back to the bright lines eating. And what the reason for the bright lines, she's like, these are areas that I won't cross. So if something has more, the first 3 ingredients are sugar, she won't eat it. So that's a bright line that she says, no, we're not going to do that. The eating pattern is that fruit is, I think you can have fruit for breakfast and you can have fruit for lunch. Don't have fruit in the evening. Big thing is no snacking. She has 2 little girls, or at the time she wrote the book, she had 2 little girls. She said, my kids can eat whatever they want to that I put on the table. I don't stop them from eating, but what I do say is we have meals. We don't snack all day long. So the no snacking is a part of this. And then to look and watch at how much you eat. Some of the things, and depending on how, and I don't recommend this because for a long-term thing, but this woman who's this smart woman, she goes to places, goes on vacation, and she packs all her food for a week because she knows she can't, if she goes into a restaurant, she doesn't know how it's processed, she doesn't know, so she's really limited, but she's very addicted, and she knows she's fallen off enough times to know, I just have to bring my own food, so she's like way over here, and I hope I never get to that point, but she weighs everything, and she's got little containers, and she's got it to an art, but that you have to figure out what you have to do. Everybody's plan, if we come back to talk in another month, and everybody in here is, let's say, lost 20 pounds, everybody's, how they've lost it is going to be different. It just because everybody's different. Everybody's got different health issues going on. Everybody has a different body style, every lifestyle. Everybody's going to have a different. But what I would think, if everybody comes back, they lose 20 pounds, what I would hope is that you did it by reducing the sugar. That's the way that they just looked at time and time and time. You cannot, I listened to some podcasts of scientists who, he's like, they grow fat cells in the laboratory, and said fat cells can sit there in these petri dishes, and said you can put fat in the fat cells, and nothing will happen. They said fat cells are really kind of hard to grow. They said, but the way that if you want to grow a fat cell, all you got to do is throw in some insulin, and insulin makes fat cells grow. So what brings up insulin is eating the sugar all the time. So if you can bring your insulin levels down and give your fat a chance to, or give your body a chance to use those excess stores of energy that you have on your body, that's the healthy way to do it. But fat cells won't grow without the elevated insulin. So if you can bring, that's why I keep talking about sugar, because sugar is what is bringing the insulin up. And if we can stop, if you remember my blood sugar from last week, if you can stop that up and down and up and down and up and down, because that's what our diets have come to. So the other part of the why part of this, and I find this very, very interesting, what the beliefs about food, so what you believe about food or what you believe about being thin. So there's another study that's out there that whatever you believe is what's going to happen. So if you believe that thin people are arrogant and they're snobbish, is there any way that your body is going to let you become a thin person if you think negatively about people that are thin? So I hear people say, well, I don't want to be thin, I just want to lose weight. But when you say that, your brain is saying, well, I don't want to be thin. So you're probably not going to lose weight. Other things, the beliefs, when I was a kid, the starving children in Africa. When is the last time that you left food on your plate and just threw it away? Not packed it up and took it home, but just threw it away. I cringe when I do that because it's like, but I think, okay, is it worse for me just to throw that food away I don't need, or put it in my body and make myself sick? So I would challenge you to see if you can actually not eat the food and just throw that wasteful. A child of 10 in my family, my mother would cringe if I threw food away. But that is me taking on stuff that I was taught, and me making myself heavy by eating food that I don't need isn't going to help the starving children in Africa. It's just going to make me sick. What is your thought when you see a very overweight person? So if you're, again, going back to the science of it, what you portray to somebody else is actually what you think about yourself. So I really, when I heard that, I'm like, oh. I mean, so I try to analyze that to say, if you're very negative about somebody that's overweight, then maybe you've got some real negative thoughts about your own image and the weight that you are carrying on your body. Some people carry along extra weight because they feel like, and it kind of doesn't, it makes sense but doesn't make sense, that if you're heavier, people don't look at you. So you kind of can become more invisible. So if the weight that you are having on your body is to protect you from people coming in contact with you, having conversations, then you can say you want to lose weight all you want to, but being thin then is going to be scary because it's a security issue. And I'll just give you an example of this. Years ago when my sons were little, they were probably, let's say, 9 and 7 years old. Taco Bell was across the street. We were going somewhere, and I wanted to grab something quick for the boys to eat. And we went in, had some food at Taco Bell. And my boys are of lots of energy, but they're pretty observant. So after we left, we're going out to the car, and there was a table of men in the mobile station. And my son said to me, Mom, why were those men looking at you that way? And it made me at that time I'm a single mom, and it made me just cringe to have to explain to my 8 or 9-year-old son. So it was after that I actually started gaining weight, because I'm like, I don't want my son, and I'm thinking, now looking back in retrospect, that yeah, I should have just said, well, sometimes men can be disrespectful or whatnot. I didn't. I took this on myself, well, I need to be heavier so that my sons don't see men looking at me this way. But just the weird stuff that goes on in your head, and it took me a while for me to actually realize that. But my whole point with this is for you to look at what your beliefs are and where they came from. And a lot of times your beliefs are stuff that you've got since you were little up to like 7 years old. So they say if you take up to 6 or 7 years old, kids are just like a recorder. All they're doing is recording, record, 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 record. After about 6 or 7, then they can start processing. But during up those 0 to 7, they're learning all these habits, and a lot of adults have the same habits that they learned as a 4-year-old and haven't investigated them to say, does that apply to me now? Do I have to eat all the food on my plate to make my mother happy? You know, my mother might not even be here, but what does eating all my food need to be about being, so analyzing those types of things. Reviewing your beliefs, if you believe that losing weight will put you at risk, then you probably won't lose weight. So if you've lost weight, gained weight, lost weight, gained weight, I would bet there's some beliefs that you have that are keeping you from losing that weight, because there's something and you say, no, I really want to, but there's got to be something in your belief system that's keeping that from happening. When we learned that most of our learned behavior as children, unfortunately, most people don't review their beliefs to see if they make sense as of an adult. They may have made sense to you as a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, but as a 50-year-old or 60-year-old, those same beliefs probably don't make a lot of sense, and maybe time to change it. And again, if this is something where you've gained weight and you've lost weight and you just can't seem to stay with it, I thought that my problem was with beliefs until I read the book on the Bright Line Eating. And my issues now aren't beliefs. My issue now, I think I've worked through most of this stuff, it's sugar. If I can, I'm an addict. I'm going to the Alcoholic Anonymous. Sometimes I understand that I am. I can't have this, but it's tough. If the other addictions that you have, if you've got cocaine addiction, you just don't take cocaine. If you're addicted to alcohol, you don't drink. You can't have a little bit of alcohol. But with food, you have to eat. And there's so many foods that have the sugar in them already that you have to really be vigilant about it. Habits for a lifetime. First time we talked about practice better sleeping and how sleeping better is actually intertwined with what you're eating. But the other part, and the kind of it all comes together with sleeping, but also with stress and less cortisol. If you can bring those things down, your sleeping is going to be better, but then your eating is also going to be better. Intermittent fasting, average person in America, 15 and a half hours, 16 hours that they're eating a day. So cutting that back so that you can bring those insulin levels down, and again, try to get to the stores of fat that you have on your body. Food, what we talked about last week, mostly you want to be eating plants. And so after you get done with the plants, if it's meat, if it's fish, if it's chicken, if it's some kind of fruit or whatnot, but most of what you should be eating, because most plants have the fiber which keep your blood sugar from spiking up and down. And question the beliefs that you have about the why for losing weight, but also the why of why at noon every day do we eat lunch? Why do we do that? If you backed your breakfast schedule up and just I guess ask why more often versus just going through the motions. Okay, so this day here, this was the 16th. So remember when we did this last week, my blood sugar for the one meal that I had spiked, and it took almost 7 hours for it to come down. So the range that we're looking at here is between 110 and I think 70. So this was a couple days after that we had that. I had several other pictures that I wanted to show you, and one of them was my husband likes to eat jelly beans. So one day I'm like, what can jelly beans do? So I've got the monitor on. I'm like, I'm just going to find out what 10 jelly beans is all I had, and it went up, straight up like a thing, up to 150 and came back down. So jelly beans is straight sugar. And I would have expected that, but I guess I wouldn't have expected it to shoot up quite as high as what it did. Walking after you eat, very important. But if you can keep from getting into the 150s or the 200 and spiking it up and down, that just means that your insulin isn't being spiked all the time, and then your body has a chance to get in and use those fat stores. I think that's the last one. It is. Questions on what we talked about? I've got a meditation, yeah. Let's go with meditation. This one is called Frustration Buster.
Hi, this is Sharon. This practice is a way of weaving mindfulness into the moments of our everyday lives, especially those that are more challenging. Any portion of this practice would serve well as a response to feeling intensely challenged or frustrated. Let's get started. You can sit or lie down doing this practice. Sit or lie down in a way that's relaxed, letting your body be at ease and awake. Close your eyes if it feels comfortable for you. We're going to start by listening to sounds. You don't have to send your ears out to listen. Relax deep inside. Create a vast sense of space in which sound is arising and passing away, arising and passing away. Then we're going to practice being aware of what's going on with you right now. What emotions are present? In particular, turn toward any unpleasant emotions. Rather than try to push them away or shut them out, just acknowledge them, silently saying, "Oh, there you are. That's what's here right now." The next step is to collect your awareness by focusing on a single object, the movements of the breath. Bring your attention to the movements of the belly, the rise and fall of the breath. By the passage of each in-breath and out-breath at the nostrils. See if you can have your out-breath be longer than your in-breath, which will engage the parasympathetic nervous system and reduce stress. Maybe in to the count of 2 and out to the count of 4. And now as a final step, having gathered ourselves to some extent, we allow our awareness to expand. As well as being aware of the breath, we also include a sense of the body as a whole, allowing awareness to be more spacious. Follow the breath as if your whole body were breathing.
Got it? All right. Has anybody started doing any more meditating or any other than find yourself at the stoplight and thinking about meditating? So with this class, we have been taping the sessions, and people have asked for copies of that, and the challenge has been so we're working on that. So if you would like, we're going to send out an email after we get done with that'll have a YouTube channel that you can go to. Make sure we've got your email. So if just ask Wyoming and write your email down if you want us to send you a copy of that so that you can re-listen to any of these that you would like to. Any questions that you guys have that I can answer? Did anybody get a glucose monitor? Thinking about getting one? To me, they're it's you can't unlearn the information that it gives you. They're just great information. Anybody sleeping better? Not quite. Some of the stuff for me, it really has taken a year. So you can't look at this and say, okay, over the month's time that I would expect anybody to lose 20 pounds and have their life. I mean, some people do that, but typically if you're going to lose it that fast, you'll probably gain it back that fast. I'd rather look at this to say, looking at the food choices that you make, the lifestyle choices that you make, and looking at them long term and say, okay, is this something that's sustainable? Is this something that I can do? For me, weighing every morsel of food that goes into my mouth, that to me isn't sustainable. So I didn't know, like there's some things that I don't want to do, but if I were somebody that was that addicted to food, then maybe, or a sugar, maybe that would be something that I would do. Questions that you guys may have? Yes?
I'm just curious if anybody besides myself saw the Oprah special. And she's been using, is it Ozempic?
Okay, yep.
With a needle in her stomach and, anybody see that?
I didn't.
It was interesting. I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
That Weight Watchers, she quit Weight Watchers because she was doing that, and that's not
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
It's lost a whole bunch of weight, you can tell, and I think and she scales on it.
What do you think about that?
But it costs
So-
about $1,000 a month.
Yeah, so how I understand it and what it does is it blocks. So insulin is a hormone, and so what it does is there's a hormone that tells you if you're hungry, and it tells you if you're full, and that's what those drugs are working on. And for me personally, I guess I've been in this field long enough that I've watched. There was one that came out years and years ago that it was the miracle. Everybody got on it, and then it found out it caused heart damage, and people were dying from this drug. So my opinion on drugs is that that's what they are. I feel like my body should be able to do what it needs to do without me putting stuff into it. So that's just me.
Yeah, and her point was that obesity is really a disease, and so they're treating the disease with this medicine.
Yep.
You would treat anything, a disease with medicine
Yep.
and all that. But if I understood everything correctly, you would need to be on it like forever.
Forever. Yep.
And it stops cravings, and it's, your brain is telling you you're not really that hungry. I mean, for me, no, I don't ever want to do something
and it's not cheap either. I mean, it's like, yeah, 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 you know,
Every day you get yourself a shot in the stomach.
yep, yep.
What about genetics?
So genetics play a part. They play a part. So there's a whole nother field called epigenetics that depending on what you eat and the stresses and stuff that you're inviting, you can turn, so if you're genetically predisposed to, let's say, have diabetes or to have heart disease or whatever, depending on what you're eating or the stress that you're involved in, you can turn those genes on or you can turn them off. So genetics are a real thing, but if you look at genetics from a standpoint of, is it because it's in your genes of, let's say, being heavier or being diabetic, or is it because that's a learned way that you learned how to eat, and that's why that you have that. But the scientists, one guy has genetics in his family to be diabetic, and he's like, I can flip, and they get it down to, they know where the genes are, and they know whether that gene is on or if that's on, off. And he's like, depending on how I'm eating, I know what to eat to flip those genes on and to flip them off. So there's a whole nother field, I think, that's just absolutely fascinating. Again, tied to the food that you eat, tied to the environmental stresses or the day-to-day stresses that you have, that you can turn those things on and off. You know, you can.
I won't say my doctor's name, but we've been my doctor for years and friends. 2 or 3 of the people in here know my father. My father was 500 pounds.
Oh, wow.
My brother was 700 pounds.
Oh, wow.
And I'm 260, I guess, something like that. And my doctor said, why are you worried about it? You're half what your dad was. You're doing okay with what you're working with.
Yeah.
So what he does, he gives me a great excuse not to do anything.
Yep. Yeah.
But, you know, everything he said was true. We did have that, but
Yeah.
we all ate alike, so.
Yeah. Well, and it's the coping mechanism, you know, in your family, you know, where you expected to eat so much, and it's just like, I think if you just sit and look at what you learned from the time that you were 7 years old about eating and those habits, your brother would have had it, and I'm guessing his dad would have grew up that too. But they say genetics, you can't say genetics don't play a part, but they figured out you can turn that stuff on and off depending on what you eat too. So you can be different depending on the food choices that you make. Yes?
Was it last week you told us that 80% were going to be full and burp?
Yep. Did anybody find the burp?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I still had food to go. So first I did it. Because I'm worried about the starting kids too.
Yep.
Yes, but I have a question now.
Yep.
Not before I burped that day,
Yep.
because it wasn't the first day.
Yep.
Does the gas process work the same to be all of a sudden you have gas about that amount of food in?
Yes.
I found that to
Yes.
be,
Yep.
that was more regular than the burp.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
You were here.
yeah. So just a refresher for those that weren't here. They say you should eat till you're 80% full, and how you can tell if you've reached that 80% is if you're paying attention and if you're aware when you're eating, you're going to burp. That's your body saying, I've had enough food. And then you have to make that choice. Am I going to stop eating or am I not going to stop eating? But that's your body saying, I've had enough. My stomach is 80% full right now. And so it's that, yeah. So anybody else find the burp? Or, yeah, it does. Everybody, if you pay attention, it's your body saying, I've had enough. And if you don't listen to it, but it's there to tell you.
We're leaving.
Okay.
Apologize for it, but my uncle passed away. We got a funeral in
Oh,
1.5 hours in Kurtz.
okay. Good luck. Yep. Good luck.
I have a question
Yeah.
about how much you should weigh.
Yep.
Because I was worried, and it's a silly worry, because I'm not there and I don't need to worry about it, but how, if you're too thin and you were to get sick, you know, as aging adults,
Yep.
how, and my cousin, she was 80 years old and she had, ended up having cancer. She had a little bit, she wasn't heavy, but she's always said, I'm so glad I was a little heavier at that time,
Mhm.
because she kept losing weight with
Yep.
the cancer. So, I I mean, are there guidelines as you get older? Would you
So-
recommend any guidelines?
So the guidelines actually say as you get older, you actually get thinner.
You
I'm-
should be thinner?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that just, proportionate wise. And part of it is because as the general population, you start losing muscle, so you're going to weigh less. So being proactive and maintaining, I guess it would depend on what your muscle, what we're talking about. Are we talking about how much muscle you have on your body? You know, for somebody who lifts weights and somebody who, and if they're the same height, same everything, and so a number, I'd be hard to
Sometimes
let.
you see those numbers when, you know, a person should weigh between this and this.
Yeah.
Or then this and this, they're obese and.
Yeah, there's so many variables on that. To me, what I would go more so is not on that, is I would be paying attention to what your blood sugar is doing and watching those things, because those are things that down the road, if you're not watching what that insulin is doing, are the things that are gonna make you sick, you know, so not necessarily having the fat stores waiting for something to happen to you. If you can bring that down, you know, so if you look, there's a book out there, several books out there that say you want your life expectancy to be the same as your health expectancy. So you go. So if you're 100 years old, then you have a slow period of time where, you know, a week or two, and then you pass away. Versus the way the scale looks like right now is people start going downhill at the age of 20, and by the time they're 50, I mean, I have people in my class in high school that are, you know, come into class reunion when they're 55 and have walkers and canes, you know, so depending on everybody's, so for one person, it's very hard to say, but I would say you want to keep active but, you know, carrying extra stores of fat around. Again, what we talked about, the average person has 40 days of extra fat on their body right now that if they couldn't eat, that they would survive for 40 days without eating, so. Yep.
What I've noticed, because I've been dieting, you know, my whole life, and
Yep.
I've got a Fitbit, and I've recorded stuff, and I've been in Noom and all this other stuff.
Yep.
And what I can't figure out now that I'm older is how many calories to have,
Yep.
or the size of your portions,
Yep.
and those sorts of things. The only way I can lose weight is if I absolutely measure everything.
Okay.
Evidently, I am unable to eyeball a deck of cards or a baseball or a ping pong ball
Yeah.
or whatever, you know, those things are.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but, you know, how do you kind of, I mean, do you just figure out calories? I mean,
So to me,
because I enter my stuff, I eat what I want to eat.
yep.
Okay. I do these games, so it's like, okay, this week I'm just gonna enter what I eat, and I'm not gonna worry about anything,
Mhm.
and see what I get. And it's like, oh, okay, it's like 1,300 calories. Okay, cool. Haven't lost anything. So then I go and I measure everything. Okay, I've got my 1,300 calories. No, nothing. Or I'll have 1,500 calories, or whatever. It's like,
So the problem with counting calories and getting it low is your body, it's going to balance. So what they found, and they've done studies, that if you limit yourself to whatever the calories, let's say it's 1,500 calories, 1,600 calories, your metabolism is going to slow down to get to that. So it's not about counting calories and depriving yourself. It's choosing the foods, eating those things, but bringing that sugar level down. So they've done studies with people who drop 500 calories a week from their diet. Their metabolism slows down by 500 calories so that it balances. So they've pretty much proven, I want to say, that counting calories really doesn't work because all calories aren't equal. So if you're,
Right.
you know, so if you,
you know, but I don't really count them. I record the food and then I just look at it and say, oh, that's how many calories I had.
yeah,
But it doesn't seem to.
After listening to you and doing Weight Watchers, I can see their whole thing with like, you don't have any points for lean meats, for vegetables, for eggs, for whatever, but or for fruit, which is interesting, that doesn't really go with all this.
Yep,
I think, I mean, not
yeah,
that I would eat all the
fruit would have like
Yeah.
too much sugar in it.
Yeah.
Yep,
Well, my nutritionist said to use a salad plate instead of dinner plate.
yep,
And cut your portion.
yep,
And that
portion
works-
size, no, that's
that
true.
works for me, that
Yep, yep,
using a salad plate instead of the dinner plate.
yep, that's true. Yes, John?
There's certain foods you can eat that you will actually lose weight because it takes more to digest it than what you're getting out of it.
True, yep.
So that
The-
would be
the fi-
protein.
Protein, but like the fiber and stuff and the salads and stuff, it takes a lot to process. Yeah. But the other part of it too, when we talked about it a couple times, is trying to implement in your diet the fermented foods, because that is feeding those bugs in your stomach, and those bugs are the things that are helping with your digestion. They're helping with keeping you healthy. So the sauerkrauts, the kefir, the kimchi, the kombucha, those types of things, so that the yogurts. When you're looking at the yogurts, I challenge you when you go to the grocery store to look at yogurt and look at anything and flip it over on the back and see how much added sugar is stuck in yogurts or any product. Just look at sugar content, and that's how I decide I'll look at the back of it and see how much added sugar is in something, and I'm like, okay, that's not the one I'm gonna take. And they're making yogurt with a lot less sugar in it. Yogurt is good, but you have to look at to see how much sugar is being added to it. There's a lot of it. Yep.
I have a lot of mind problems, obviously, because I will not buy my dog a dog treat where wheat is listed first, because she can't, dogs aren't supposed to have wheat.
Yep.
Why do I not turn around and see how much sugar is first listed, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Same thing.
Yeah.
But it's asking those questions and becoming more. That's the first step. So it might be for everybody here in a year we have a class reunion of this class, and have people like, oh, this is what I learned from it, and this is how I process the stuff and made the changes. But generally, you have to. It's a process. It's not something that, after 4 weeks you guys have got it all figured out, and because then life happens. You get stressed, and you have birthday parties, and you have this, and figuring out how to navigate. But it's a good life. It's a good life.
I have,
Yep.
accidentally to Darrell about his doctor saying, why
Yep.
worry about your weight? Well, I've been big all my life, from 2 months on. And a UW doctor said, yes, you are too heavy, but you don't yo-yo. And I'm thinking of Oprah Winfrey. We've all seen her do this.
Yep. So
she's
true.
yo-yoing in her lifetime.
Yep. Yep.
He says, yo-yoing is worse for you than
True.
being the weight.
Very true. Yep. 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 And I think that there's something to be said with being happy with who you are, and that you don't have to. That in order to love myself, I have to lose weight. I love myself. Period. And then. But I think I keep going back to a couple, probably 4 or 5 months ago. There was this thing on TV about a grandson and was taking his grandma to all the national parks, and they were going hiking. And I'm like, okay, I've got a granddaughter that's 2 years old right now. That's going to be me and her when I'm 95 years old, and so that's my goal, to be healthy enough to to do and setting that stuff out there. But that's something that I really enjoy doing. But in going back to the whole weight loss thing, the weight loss has to be for a good reason for yourself. It can't be because my husband wants me to lose weight, or because my doctor wants me to lose weight, you have to find that reason for yourself inside to say why you're worth investing for getting the good foods, or why you're worth investing not eating the sugar. And putting yourself as much as you'd value your dog, or your grandkids, or whoever. Put yourself up there first and value yourself so that you can be there for the people that you love. All right, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Now it's up to Lime Ridge to the